When discussing tuning, Hatsune starts at done 710, and we call it lowering, when it is tuned to E1, 610 done 510 for San F, 410 for F, and so on. On the internet, done 910 is considered deep C, and C tuning is for D2. In Japan, the most popular tunings are the Tozan Ryu and Shinpo Ryu. Currently, Ayo Missel Madumpo Pentine Perste and the Testin Duon sang in it now. There are 5 different styles of shakuhachi being practiced in Japan, characterized by variations in the mouthpiece shape and the playing style of performers. This is similar to the distinction between the southern and northern schools of the bamboo flute. However, today I want to share my own experiences and methods of making shakuhachi over the past few years, which I refer to as Chinese shakuhachi. In 2012, we embarked on a mission to revive the art of making shakuhachi and explored various approaches. First, we obtained books and drawings about shakuhachi from Japan for reference. We also studied numerous Chinese books, including the Chinese book 18 Studies. In 2019, we even applied for the Intangible Cultural Heritage Project for shakuhachi craftsmanship in Yuhan district. Therefore, in the following video, I will demonstrate the production of shakuhachi that meets the needs of Chinese people, based on my personal experiences and insights. Now, let's move on to selecting the materials for making shakuhachi. These materials have been stored in the warehouse for over 5 years. The shite material is the most suitable, with a relatively high density, a certain thickness of bamboo, and an appealing appearance. During the material selection and production process, I will rely on my experience and methods accumulated over the years. This may lead to some unnecessary controversies online. First of all, when we receive the materials, the outer diameter is usually around 3 cm, taking one shaku 8-san as an example, from a sufficient position, and 54. 5 centimeters from the position of the bamboo joint, we can obtain a relatively complete shakuhachi among all the materials I have measured. Only one barely meets the requirements for making a 1 shaku 8-san shakuhachi. However, I also noticed that the hold positions are not as standard as those in the shakuhachi, commonly referred to as shakubiki. Therefore, the selection of materials for shakuhachi is very meticulous and strict. Today, I will use this piece of bamboo to make a shakuhachi. This is the one we picked from the warehouse this morning. After bringing it back, the first step is the same as the southern school, which is to roast it. Before roasting, we need to remove the excess parts. We need to cut off a part of the root, and then cut off a section above the 3 small sections of the bamboo. During the roasting process, we need to preserve some bamboo sections so that the bamboo can be evenly roasted. The tools we use are actually very simple. We use an 8mm steel bar, bend it into a U-shape, and attach it to a wooden board with a groove underneath. The size of the U-shape can be adjusted according to the size of the material. During the roasting process, when we insert it into the shakuhachi and roast it at this position, we must remember that every part needs to be roasted and educated. What does this achieve? Firstly, it unifies the internal meridians. And secondly, it unifies the external meridians. Our natural materials have different degrees of bending, so we may need to use a capacitor for roasting. The temperature of the capacitor should not be too high. For expensive materials or materials used to make shakuhachi, we usually use a 2000 watt capacitor. Because the bamboo is thicker, we need to heat it slowly and keep rotating it until it emits heat. We also need to wipe the surface during the process because it will produce grease. We need to quickly cool it with water to prevent it from being burned or scorched. If it is burned or scorched, it is easy to break. Okay, the first section is relatively straight now, but this section is still curved. So we need to straighten it section by section. During the roasting process, we need to observe when it turns slightly yellow, which indicates that the bamboo is cooked. This completes the first step. It is curved, so we need to call it section by section.
During the roasting process, we need to see that it turns slightly yellow, which indicates that the bamboo is cooked. The first section is called, then the second section is called. Then we move on to the second, third, and fourth sections, adding one section at a time. All right, this is what we just roasted. Before we start, we need to trim the roots at the back because they contain a lot of stones. You need to trim off the excess roots and knead them to about 2 to 3 millimeters from the root to ensure the aesthetics of the finished product. After handling the sediment, we first polish it on this sand table. The first round of polishing is basically done. During the polishing process, the foot should have a trumpet-shaped appearance. All right, this is what we just polished. We need to cut it into a length. A ratio of 1 to 2 to 4, like this, according to my personal understanding. After cutting from the top to the end, we have a size of 54. But there are still holes drilled on the bamboo joints, which are not very standard. After sawing, you will find that the root is very thick, and you can hardly see the pores. So first, we need to drill through this bamboo joint with a 9.5mm drill bit. We can use a lathe to drill through the joint. During the drilling process, we must align with the center of the bamboo and not be off-center. If it is off-center, it will be difficult for us to handle the internal mechanism later. The tail hole has already been drilled through, and you can see a small hole with a diameter of 9.5mm. Then, according to the size of the 18 inner diameter, we will gradually enlarge this hole and make the inside standard. This is the most critical step. After drilling the head, we can use a burning method, using a wolf tooth stick to flatten and smooth each section of the bamboo joint. After polishing with the wolf tooth stick on both ends, our inner passage is basically open. You can see that the entire hole is very round. And let's take a look at the inner diameter, which is relatively small. After polishing the inner ribs, the next step is to draw lines and drill holes. We need to determine the position and size of the blowing holes with this tool, generally when we sit down. It is similar to the position of the southern school, where the bamboo is relatively flat and comfortable to press. In order to make the straight line straighter, we use a wooden bucket to mark the line. All right. This line we marked is basically the same as the white line we drew. Now, we need to determine the position of the straight hole. First, we take an 18mm material, and its hole position is very accurate. We use this as a standard to determine the position of the 18-inch mouth hole. With the position of the hole behind, we can determine the position of the hole in front after drilling the 4 holes in front. The 18 hole is a round hole, and the hole is also relatively large, with a diameter of 9.5 to 10 millimeters. First, we use a 9.5mm triangular drill to drill the hole. When the 4 holes in front are drilled, we can determine the position of the hole in the back. All right, this way we have basically completed the position of the 18.5 holes. After drilling, we need to do some destructive treatment. The cut of the bamboo joint is an outer cut. And when polishing, you can use a file and a flat board, or you can fight it out. You can also use a polishing machine. Generally, when we polish, we cut the bamboo about 2 from the 2 centimeters of the whole bamboo at an angle. The angle is also polished according to the thickness of the material. In the process of cutting, we must pay attention to keeping the entire surface flat. Another thing is that the position of the outer cut and the straight hole must be on the same straight line. If there is any deviation, it will affect the sound quality of the 18. After it comes out of the mold, we don't need to touch it anymore. Maybe we still need to polish the inner passage.
To achieve the best sound and smoke, it is essential to carefully adjust the inner diameter. Each time we polish it,
the sound undergoes subtle changes. The polishing of the inner diameter is a critical step in the entire manufacturing process.